we're ready to get going now, so as soon as you're ready, you can open the doors and start letting the passengers on board. Thank you.
No problem.
Welcome aboard US Airways, a flight from TONCONTIN, one of the world's most dangerous approaches. We just landed here in the previous video. We're going to take off from here and going to MROC, MROC, also known as San Jose. Where is San Jose? It's Juan Santa Maria International, and that is in Costa Rica. So we're gonna do this little startup video, going over to the FMC, hitting the init, our initial page, MHTG/MROC. That is from and to. We're gonna input it there. We already came up here to our panel. We hooked up to the ground power, started battery 1 and 2, and then right away we aligned our ADIRs. Everything went to nav, and we're gonna go GPS ×3. Ground control is auto. Crew supply, oxygen went on, and that's about it. We just flipped the signs on, no smoking and seatbelts on, and beacon light is on, as well as the nav will go on. We're going to come over here, adjust the brightness, and going back to the FMC, CDU, whatever you want to call it. Align the IRS by clicking right there. We're going to input our flight level. Sim brief says we're cruising at 370. It is somewhat of a short flight, but we're going to do what sim brief says. So 370, and we're going to go there fast. We don't care about fuel. We're going to go cost index 95. Fast, but a slow climb. And then pretty much as fast as we can go in cruise. Flight number 905, 905, why not? As well as our call sign. This is not a typical flight that a US Airways does. We're not sure, but I really didn't have any other liveries, didn't have any South American liveries or anything like that. I wish I had an Aeromexico, but I don't. So we're gonna go with that. We know right away that carrying about 3 tons of cargo and with full passengers, we're always sitting about 58.3 tons, with 29.3 being our zero fuel weight center of gravity. Looking at the FMC, says 5.684, so 5,684 kilograms. We're going to round that off to 5.6, so let's go 5.7, and then we're going to go another extra 100 kilos, so we're going to go 5.8. 5.8 in our block fuel, and then we're going to come over here into our little Toliss menu, and we're going to make sure that we put that right here, 5.8, and we're going to quick fuel that. Okay, there it is, 5,800 kilos, and we're going to do it like that with 3 tons of cargo. Departing runway 02, and it's Libis 1 is our departure. Input that. Coming over here after Libis, that's the last fix of our SID. It's going to take us into our route. By clicking on Libis and then clicking on Airways, we're going to come over to the page where we can enter Airways. So UA 502, Airway UA 502, and that should take us to MGA. Okay, Now everything works well. At times you can just enter the airway from the airway. So just enter airways all the way down here, but it's not always guaranteed to work. Um, you know, from one airway to the next airway, you should have the fix there. But I like to enter the airway as well as the fix. So UA 317. I hope that didn't confuse anybody. UA 317, and then over to MROC. And then we have Piras, which is the last fix before we kind of go into our arrival. We're going to enter right now. We're going to input on that previous page, and we're going to enter Piras into our flight plan page right here. We're going to come over to clear, and we're going to clear this discontinuity and insert. Go over our route, no discontinuities. MROC is our arrival airport. That's fine for now. We're going to leave that. We're going to program our arrival once we're up in the air, closer to, you know, somewhere mid-flight probably. Flaps 1 for takeoff. We are at elevation, and it's not the longest of runways, but I think that we can do it with flaps 1. We're not that heavy. It is warm out here, so we're not going to get the best performance out of the engines, but I'm pretty confident that we can take off with flaps 1. If I had any doubts, if it was a little bit of a shorter runway, it is, you know, the sun is coming down. We do have some cooler weather rolling in.
All passengers are on board.
Okay, thank you very much.
Great stuff. We're just waiting on the load sheet from ground. Once they've been on board and they've given the go-ahead, you can close the doors and we'll get going.
And we're going to close the doors and put that seatbelt sign on. So yeah, anyway, what I was trying to say is that I have confidence that we can take off with flaps 1. So we're going to go with that. Going over to our performance page.
That's great, thank you.
It looks like our V1 will be 129, calculator ready for us, 138, and then for the V to rotate, and 141 for our V2. Transition sits at 19,000. I suppose that's correct. It typically kind of nails it right on the button. The Toliss kind of knows where it is in the world. It's not like we're in North America, so it's always standard.
Good afternoon, welcome aboard the aircraft.
When I'm in Europe,
My name is Steve.
Toliss
I'm your
actually
pilot today, along with
suggests
First Officer David and your senior flight attendant
transition
Alana.
altitudes, and they're
Hey, with the rest
always,
of the crew, we'll be
almost
making our way around
always
the cabin, make sure you're
correct.
comfortable.
So
We're not anticipating
our
any delays,
flaps
so
are
we
1 for
should be arriving on
takeoff.
time at
So
our destination.
1/00
The guys on the ground have
is
just told
our
us they've finished loading the final
trim
bits of
right
luggage into
here.
the aircraft,
Center
so
of gravity,
we should be on our way
once we're
very
loaded up
shortly.
with fuel that we loaded
We
up,
are,
our center of
however,
gravity
waiting
changed
to
to
receive clearance
30.4.
to push us back
With
down
that
to start.
center of gravity, we have trim
Before we taxi to
setting
runway.
of
If
down
you can help the cabin crew
0.0.
by
I
getting
just
yourself
put
comfortable with
0.0.
seatbelts fastened, that would
It
be
actually
fantastic. Once airborne, we'll be
automatically
starting line flight
will
services,
put
but
it
for now,
down.
I'd like to thank you
If
for
you have
choosing
an
to fly
up
with us today, and I hope you
trim,
enjoy the flight. Thank
you
you.
would simply put, let's say, 1 or 2 slash, and then you would put up 0.0. If you enter that, you will actually here, for demonstration purposes, we're going to go up 0.3. I suppose you would have to have a positive value there for it to register as up. So you would come over here, flaps 1 slash our trim set is up 0.3. We're going to go back and just go back to 0.0, do the suggested trim. Like I said, I have confidence we're going to take off. Our flex temps are going to be 59, and that's it for now. We're all set there. We have our flight plan already programmed in there. We have all our settings. These awesome mixed panel new textures. They're great textures with mixed panel great textures, so they're not all gray. We have a little bit of darker gray here. We flew the blue panels for such a long time, and we kind of wanted to give it a little little change here. So I also think the gray panels are a little more accurate when it comes to, you know, the light blue panels. They sometimes look very dark, but I think these gray blue panels are a little more accurate. Let's see here. So we're all loaded up, we're ready for push and start, and let's secure the cockpit. We had the loading sheet on board. The ground crew came up and gave us the loading sheet, and our communications is on. TARA is set, and coming over here, just checking up here one more time. It looks like we're all good. We're going to start the master switch here on our APU, and we're going to put the fuel pumps on. While the APU is coming to life, coming over here, just pre-plan a pushback, and we're going to roll it back right over here. Okay, looks good enough for me.
Can acknowledge. Coming to the menu when you are ready.
When you are ready. Okay, no problem. And let's start that APU. Start is going on. All the brightness is kind of good. Let's jack this up a little bit. And yeah, we're looking good. I kind of like, even though Toliss gives great performance, it's very, very well optimized. Where I always kind of turn off those displays because I feel like it gives me a little bit better FPS, I suppose. It's not really a proven theory, but I just feel like that. Mostly I fly in this view right here, as well as some outside views that I have already pre-programmed, I suppose. So I never really look at those displays. I suppose they could be very useful. You can put a different type of map on here instead of this arc that I always kind of look at. But yeah, this is just how I do it. APU is looking good. The APU valve is it's bleeding, and we're good. APU generators, everything's good. Let's put the APU bleed on, and let's call our pushback. Nope.
Ground cockpit. Tau is driving up.
There's no controllers here at the moment, so we're going to clear ourselves up to 370, but we will fly the constrictions, so I like to have the constrictions on. Kind of reminds me of which waypoint I'm supposed to be at which height, so on and so forth. Of course, this is the Airbus. It is a flying computer, and it flies the constrictions on departure and on arrivals pretty damn well. As we wait for our pushback truck to connect, we're going to do one last little look around. All the doors are closed, everything's secure. This TONCONTIN scenery is free and it's amazing. You should download it from the forums.
Okay, all doors and hatches are closed. Ready to connect.
Beautiful scenery. I don't know who did it, but whoever did it did a wonderful, wonderful job. Like I said, a very, very tough airport to come into. You have to kind of fly low here at about 5,000, and this is already at an elevation here. So, and then coming over down to about 4,200 feet, and then taking control manually, and then hard left bank coming down here onto the runway. We do have a landing here. We nailed it. We did it perfectly. We do have a video of that. But now it's time to take off out of here and go to another beautiful airport, which is a freeware airport that we also found on the forums. And the airport looks amazing. I was wondering, okay, where am I going to fly from TONCONTIN to? And I don't think I've ever been down to our destination. Pardon me, I don't think I've ever been to Costa Rica at Juan Santa Maria International. So this is going to be first time for me, but the scenery looked great, and I said, hey, why not, let's do it. Right before we release a parking brake, we're going to disconnect from the ground power. We are on APU power. We're going to release the brakes, and even though it's automatic and very forgiving in the Airbus, and you don't need to do this, but I always put the packs off. So packs are off for start. I kind of treat it like Boeing, so always packs off for start. And we're going to start engine number 2. Of course, the mode selector, engine mode selector is going to start, and then we're going to start engine number 2. Just kind of looking outside and seeing that engine come alive.
Cabin crew, please arm doors, thank you.
For all the passenger simulation and passenger sounds, we are using self-loading cargo. An amazing plugin, well worth $15 or $19, I think. Very immersive, and it kind of gives you something to fly for.
We know you have lots of choices.
This I do have the American Airways sound pack here with it.
Along with me, we'll be on our way.
Oh, we didn't connect to the network.
Captain, the cabin is secured. All doors
Alright, real
are
quick.
checked. We're ready
Let's
to
start
go.
X-Pilot.
That's great, thank you.
Connect on to VATSIM. Coming down here. Let's start that engine number 1. Let's quickly put in our flight plan, MHTG to MROC, and our alternate airport is MRLB. MRLB, I don't know what that is. We're going to look it up a little bit later, and then copy our route and put it in the route page there. You can't see what I'm doing, but trust me, it's happening. And then we're going to connect over to the network, and there we go. At the same time, we're going to ask for the METAR here one more time. 1015 is our altimeter, and we're going to set that parking brake.
Selecting tow. Stand by.
Let the tow truck disconnect. There we go, they lowered us to the ground. Altimeter is set, everything else is set. We're not going to go through the checklist or anything like that, and that's pretty much all it takes to get the Airbus rolling. Airbus is really easy. Once you set up the flight plan in your MCDU, every time after that it's going to be easy. Not too much to know, not too much to remember. Performance page, initial page, and then you can go into your flight plan page. You can just put in the waypoints, or you can click on a waypoint and then go over to Airways and enter Airways to be more accurate and more direct when it comes to your flight plan or flight path. Packs 1 and 2 are going on after start, and we are on engine power right now. Of course, we don't have to switch anything to let the aircraft know we're on engine power. It is the Airbus, so he kind of automatically knows. It's very automated, unlike some of the Boeing aircraft. So all we're going to do is just turn off the APUs and then turn on the runway turn-offs, and we're going to arm our landing lights or takeoff lights. Strobe is going to go to auto, and we're going to release the parking brake, set flaps to 1, that's our takeoff config, and we're going to arm the spoilers for takeoff, as well as auto brake is going to max for takeoff as well. We started rolling backwards a little bit. Everything's on a little bit of a slope here, so just giving a little bit of gas and get it going here. We're going to advise our cabin, and we're going to come down here and do a takeoff config, and takeoff config is good. ECAM no blue, so we're good to go. No blue warnings. If you have anything blue on here, it means that there's something that you have to do. Typically, people know about everything. I've seen somebody ask, how do I do the cabin? The cabin was left blue. Just coming over here and clicking the little announcement button. I suppose the forward call to the cabin will clear that blue for cabin. So, once again, no blue. We're all green, and we're good for takeoff. APU says it's still available, but it is going to turn off shortly, and that's going to disappear. So we got cabin ready, auto brake max, signs on, cabin ready, spoilers are armed, flaps are in takeoff config 1 and takeoff config is normal. We're all good. You can come over here and check all your pages here. I suppose we can leave that for another day. Coming over and just checking over all your pressures, all your gauges, all your oil pressures, checking on your fuel flows, air flows, so on and so forth, fuel consumption, and everything else. You can see right here the APU is slowly winding down. It's slowly shutting down. The EGT rotation and the temperatures are slowly coming down, so we're all good there. Actually, we're going to put it on over to the engine. Crew is not yet seated. We're going to advise the crew.
Have a crew seat for takeoff, please.
There we go. We did that through the self-loading cargo. Now, and if anybody was around us, we would announce our position, we would announce our pushback and start, and that we're taxiing to the runway, which runway we're taxiing to, and via which taxiways. Since there's nobody around us, we're just going to go ahead and depart straight out with no delay. You can see our departure. We're going to depart straight out and do a series of right-hand turns over to Libis, and Libis is the end of our set, and then we're going to go into our route over to Kopal, Berta, so on and so forth. Let's put the landing lights on, or takeoff lights on. Gonna give it a little bit of thrust here. We are on a little bit of an incline. And we're gonna come straight out as far as we can, and then we're gonna turn in. We don't want to waste any runway. There's not too much runway for us here. I suppose good portion, but it's not too long of a runway. We overshot it there a little bit. Alright. Seem like we're lined up. And we're ready for takeoff. We'll pretend that that's 50% and stable. Thrust. Takeoff thrust set. Man flex 59. SRS. Runway is not green, but that's okay. We know we're on the runway, or we're on the correct runway. And we're having to work the rudder a little bit. 80 knots cross check.
100.
And 100 checked. V1 and rotate. So we cut it pretty close there, but we're good. We're just gonna miss those trees. Beautiful.
Positive rate, gear up.
And positive rate, gear up. I'm gonna bring that map in a little bit. We're bleeding some airspeed, so nose down, and we're gonna make that first left turn, slight left. Pull back on the stick again. We're gonna hand fly this departure for a little bit. It's always better that way. Suggesting lever to climb, so thrust climb, and at this point you're pretty much good to engage the autopilot, or you can continue to hand fly the departure. We're gonna select autopilot for now, so we can come down here and just clean up our aircraft a little bit. And as we gain speed, slowly as we gain speed, so our landing gear is up and spoilers are off. Sometimes we keep the ignition on for start if we're at high altitudes, maybe departing through clouds, or a lot of companies actually keep the switch to ignition well into their departure. Coming over to our speed here, speed check, and we're gonna go flaps up. This is also not too, this is not a stock sound that comes with the Toliss, as well as the gray mixed panels. The sound is also a free sound pack, and it is somewhat better than the vanilla sounds that come with the Toliss 319 and the 321. The plane has decreased our attitude here in the climb, and it's kind of speeding up. Once it gets to 150, it's going to start increasing our attitude. So going from 1600 feet per minute, it's going up to 24 now, and 25 and 26. So we're slowly starting to climb once again. I think the transition here is 18,500. That's what our that's what was suggested to us. So we're just gonna respect that. Or you know what? Once we see QNH flashing on us, that's a good indicator that we can switch it over to standard. So climbing to 10,000, that was pretty quick because we were at elevation in TONCONTIN. We're gonna go taxi, or should I say nose light off, from takeoff to taxi to off, and then runway turnoffs can go off, as well as our landing lights or takeoff lights can go off as well. We are in good weather. We don't have too many clouds, so we're gonna keep the power at optimum, and we're now gonna put the anti-ice on, not just yet. I typically fly with anti-ice on always, but we're gonna leave it on for now. We do have some pretty warm and pretty good weather. It is true outside temperature right now is 13 degrees as we climb through 10,000 or 11,500. Outside temperature, simulated outside temperature is -2. But we're okay. We're not really flying through any clouds or bad weather, so we'll be okay. So that's the first 2 right turns we did there in our series of right turns. We're gonna do actually that's kind of the first one we did. We went a little bit to the left, did that first turn, and now we're gonna do a second turn, and then after Alpha, we're gonna do our third right turn towards the end of towards Libis. Like I mentioned, that's the end of our SID and the beginning of our route. At Libis, it's a left turn. So past 10,000, aircraft is speeding up to its, I should say, cruise speed, because we do have our cost index pretty high. We're not really conserving any fuel. So we're going pretty fast, but it's also not so much of a high pitch or attitude on a climb. I mean, 3,000 feet is a pretty, it's a pretty good climb, but that will, as we gain in altitude, that will kind of drop off. It's coming over the clouds. Like, let's look back, see if we can see our airport. Oh, it's all the way over there. So we've already kind of flew a lot of distance here. that's pretty much it. Not a very in-depth startup tutorial, I suppose, but you know, quickly just kind of walk you through the FMC setup, considering that or assuming that you're already a little familiar with the aircraft. There's a lot of in-depth tutorials out there that you can refer to, I suppose. And as we're coming up to 18,000, this is typically standard transition altitude in NA or North America, where I mostly fly. So coming past 18,000, our QNH is still not flashing. Coming up to 18.5, it's still not flashing, so I suppose 19,000 will be the transition altitude like our FMC suggested. So coming up to 19,000, we should see our QNH or our barrels start flashing, indicating that we should switch this over to standard pressure. And there goes, switching over to standard, and we're ready to make that climb. We're not expecting any bad weather or any turbulence. It's a pretty clear day. So once we get up to about 21,000, our attitude will drop even further. It's going to drop to about 18 to 16,000 or 18 to 1,600 feet per minute attitude in our climb. That's when we can actually start serving food and drinks and get ahead, because it's not too long of a flight at all. The flight is only what to say here, it's about an hour flight, 57 minutes of air time, that's what it's saying, and then it's about 400, just over it's just over 400 miles. So just under an hour of air time. And as our attitude decreases right now to 1,600 feet per minute, we're going to start serving food.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are about to start
And enjoy the sights and sounds.
Make sure your tray table is in the down position and clear any items from here.